Hi, Year 5, and welcome to your narrative writing lesson 1. Okay, so today we're going to have a look. If you've already seen the sheet, you know we're going to look at features of a narrative, okay, like we would if we were starting a new genre of writing. Okay, so first of all, in a story, okay, one of the first things we need to think about is, as a writer, is setting the scene, okay? So thinking about the setting of the story, where does it start off? Where does it take place? Where does it end, for that matter? So, as you can hear, what this is doing is, okay, it's giving you the impression. If you're the reader, you need to feel almost like you're there. As a writer, you've got to use lots of really good vocab and language skills, okay, to be able to convey that. So like that witch cackling, you've got to plant that seed in your reader's mind that that's what you can hear. Okay, you can hear the creak of the door. Okay, your reader needs to feel that. This one is clearly set in a forest, and you can hear the wind howling or the wind whistling. Okay, the wind might blow your hair. Okay, this is a bit more of a UFO, a spaceship one. Okay, so you might have to say something about the fact that the scene looks like the sky was like red and the flying saucer flew straight past. Okay, this is a bit more of a mountainous setting. Okay, so you might want to talk about the peaks of the mountain, the top of the mountains, because some of them look quite snowy. Okay, but as writers, you've got to get very good at describing these scenes for them, these settings, all right? Because it's not enough just to say, oh, it was windy. Okay, I think if lots of books started with, it was a windy day, okay, it'd get very boring very quickly. Okay, here's an underwater one. Okay, so if you were underwater, you could probably feel the fish, okay, swimming around, you might be touching you. Okay, you could hear probably the water bobbing in your ears, you know, when your ears fill with water, sorry. Yeah. Okay, so what is a setting? Okay, a setting is where a story takes place. Listen to the sounds. We've already done that. Okay, I made sure that was first, and I wanted you to get a feel for how important a setting is. All right, because I think a setting, if we can describe the setting, okay, your reader is so involved, and it's almost like they're there. Because as jobs as writers, it's to transport our reader to where we want them to be. Okay, so something else they have in a narrative is characters. Okay, so here it says there's 2 or 3 characters are usually enough for a short story. Here's how to make the characters sound real. So these are almost like some top tips. It might be that you want to make some notes on the back of your sheet, because if you haven't already guessed, your narrative writing is going to lead you to write a story. Okay, so give them suitable names. So for example, if it's a pirate, okay, you were writing about pirates, you'd call it Captain Pegleg, Scarface Bill, Sly Sam, or One-Eyed Pete. If it's astronauts, Commander Ben Lewis, Assistant Commander Buzz Owens, or Captain Tilly Jones. Okay, don't just use your friend's name in a story. Okay, so if you know you've got a best friend and you think, I want to write them in my story, you don't need to do that. All right, describe what they look like and how they move. Now, I know in Year 5 we've done lots of character descriptions, okay? So this is really key, because just like if you're describing a setting, you want your reader to feel like they're almost there. When you're describing a character, you want to be almost like they know them. All right, so for example, a wizened old man shuffling about the house in slippers, a giant hairy orange caterpillar creeping slowly along. A 10-year-old girl, rather small for her age, skipped merrily along the street, her long fair hair flying in the wind. Okay, so they're all not describing the same thing. They're all separate now. They're all describing separate nouns. Okay, but you get a lot of information. That in particular, that one, a 10-year-old girl, comma, rather small for her age, comma, skipped merrily along the street, comma, her long fair hair flying in the wind. You get so much information. Then it says, try to show how they feel using adjectives, adverbs. For example, tired, excitedly, grateful, angrily, happy, sadly, curious, worriedly, relieved, nervously. We know all about word classes, adjectives and adverbs. Okay, adverbs describes, okay, how they're doing something. And a verb is a doing word. So if they're running, they'll be running excitedly. So that would be a verb and adverb. Okay, we know adjectives can be used together to make expanded noun phrases. Okay, so we should be able to describe a character really well. Okay, so there we go. I think that's them all now. Look carefully at these characters and can you write a short description just for one? On the back of your sheet, if you want to just write a sentence, okay, or two, choose one of these images and see if you can write a really descriptive sentence, just like we've just read, okay, about one of them. All right. Do not have to do all of them, but one of them if you could. If you pause the video here, that would be great, and then we will move on. Right, so how do I start a good story? So a story has an opening, doesn't it? Okay, so if we're still looking at features of a narrative, okay, something here is dialogue. Okay, so obviously dialogue here is showing you that it's to do with speech. Okay, so sharks, shouted the ship's lookout, hundreds of them. What tells me how to say that? Can you spot it? Yeah, it's the exclamation mark. It's telling me I need to exclaim that piece of dialogue. Okay, they seem to be heading our way, cried the captain. Okay, so when you're including speech, make sure you're not just saying that the sharks said the ship's lookout. Yeah, if you use said all the time, it gets boring, and people that are reading it want to use expression. Okay, so action. An ear-splitting whistle made all the pirates leap to attention. At once they ran in different directions, bumping into one another, scrambling over untidy piles of ropes and tarpaulin, sliding down rickety ladders, all trying to be the first in the queue for lunch. Okay, can you see how that sentence length is making it sound like it's all happening so quickly? Okay, now we know description is a key part of a good story. We've already discussed that. Right, this is important. Okay, these question words are important when writing stories. So who, what, how, where, when, and why. Okay, so the tiny bird hopped quickly across the garden, picked up the bread, and immediately flew off to a safe place to eat it. Okay, so if you can see, the colours match up with what it's answering. So who is the tiny bird? The what, it picked up the bread. The how, it hopped quickly. The where, across the garden. The when, immediately. And the why, to eat it. Okay, as you can see, there can be two of the same answering the same question in there, but it keeps the sentence really interesting. So now I want you to try, just like last time, with one of these pictures, okay? Just choose one and see if you can write a who, what, how, where, when, and why kind of sentence. If you've got it in multiple times, so for example, if you've got two where, that's fine. It's not a problem, but I want you to have a go at writing a really interesting sentence, all right? Use this one to help you to structure it if you need to, okay? But choose one of these, so whether it's going to be a shark, the pirate, the dragon, the witch, or the ghost. Right. Okay, so once you've done that, if you need to, pause it at the last slide, okay? But once you've done that, these are also really good features, okay, that we can put into a story to make them better. So we all know alliteration. So the words started with the same letter. Dark, dank, dreary forest, crowded, cobbled streets. Okay? Rhyming words. So hustle and bustle, rumbling and tumbling. Patterning in the highest branches of the furthest tree, travelling faster and faster. Ooh, onomatopoeia. Words that sound like the thing they describe. So jingling, jangling, tinkling coins. Similes, which all should be familiar with a simile. Okay, we're comparing one thing to another and are introduced by words like or as. So the wet mud was sticky like fudge cake. Metaphors are the one that sometimes we struggle with and find slightly trickier. So they compare one thing with another but are not introduced by like or as. So the wet mud was sticky fudge cake. So can you see the difference there? We're not saying it's like it, we're saying it is. Okay? So, something else, events, okay? So an interesting story will contain several events, okay? A strong, exciting plot has an unexpected event. A crisis, so that's what we would call a problem, which needs to be sorted out by the end of the story. What do we call that at the end of a story? If things are sorted out, it begins with a R, begins with an R, a resolution, good. Okay, so here you go. For example, the problem would be the trees being cut down and there being none left. So that might be a hint as to what story you're writing. Okay, so story ending. So explain the result of the events or show how the problem was solved. But don't end with everyone going home for tea or someone waking up to find it was all a dream, because that can be a little bit boring, can't it? So endings usually bring the story around full circle. So for example, This is an example story. So the start of it, 3 scruffy pirates sat gloomily around a table in the Lord Nelson pub, staring down into their empty beer glasses. One by one, they emptied out their pockets. It seemed they had all run out of money. And then the ending to that story will be the pirate gang made their way down to the quay to their favourite pub to celebrate their success. They had earned enough money now to buy a year's worth of beer and have change. So can you see at the start they had no money, and now at the end they've got lots of money. Okay? Right, so the final sentence is as important as the opening sentence. It usually sums up the story's theme or message. So it had been the best day of my life. I'll never forget her. If only it hadn't been so selfish. She realised taking part is much more important than winning. It just goes to show crime really doesn't pay, and they were richer than they could have ever dreamed. Okay, so you can see this one almost. This leads me to think that this story had a bit of a moral to it. So she realised taking part is much more important than winning. Right, so your task to do today is to make a mind map of the features of a narrative, okay? As I mentioned before, this unit of work we're going to lead up over the next 2 weeks to write your story. Now, you are going to be writing the story, or should I say retelling the story of the Lorax, but from the boy's point of view. So you are going to be that boy that's the last truffle seed, but we're going to make it so that he's watching what's going on throughout the story. So, for example, when the Onslaught arrives in that beautiful place, the boy will already be there. So he might say something along the lines of, a stranger arrived with a cart and he was disturbing the peace. I hope you understand what I mean, but this will become very clear as we go through, okay? Because we're going to plan it, okay? We're going to have a go at writing each paragraph separately. We're going to rewrite it up nice and neat and beautiful. Okay, and then hopefully when they come back into school, we can have a good read of them. Okay.